Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane. I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts, and I am super excited to be here with authors Mansi Shah and Weina Randel, who are going to be talking about their books, Saving Face and The Master Jeweler, which are, you're going to want to read them. But we're going to learn all about them in just a minute. I just want to say, before we get started, thanks to the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting all of our programs. And I'd like to thank Weina and Mansi for letting us share this program with other libraries, because of course, when libraries work together, we make magic. And if you have questions for Mansi or Weina, you please put them in the Q&A, and we will answer questions, well, they will, after they talk for about 40 minutes. And if you have anything you want to chat about with each other, feel free to put that in the chat, especially if you've been reading something you've really enjoyed recently. We'd love to hear what you are liking as well. You can buy signed books by both Mansi and Weina from Aesop's Fable, our very favorite local indie bookstore, because we love indie bookstores and we love Aesop. So, I think somebody has kind of joined us.
That is my dad. Hold on, let me get him to log out.
Let's see. I'm going to. Oh, wait, how come I can't do that? Hold on one second. I got you. It's always fun when you have like technical issues.
Yes, sorry about that.
That's okay. It was nice to see him. Yeah, we know you have a lovely looking dad. Anyway, so yeah, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. You can buy signed books by our authors from Aesop's Fable. And as I said, Weina and Mansi will be talking for about 40 minutes. And then I will come back and moderate the Q&A. So Mansi Shah is, you know what? I'm going to let you guys talk and tell us about yourselves and your books yourself, instead of me like spending another 2-3 minutes doing that. So welcome, Mansi, Weina. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I will let Mansi start. How about that?
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Mina and Ashland Library, for organizing this. We are both so excited to be here. I am Mansi Shah. I am the author of contemporary fiction novels that center Gujarati families. And my latest novel is Saving Face, which is one we're going to talk about today. And it came out in August, and it is a rags to riches story about an Indian orphan born in Singapore who ultimately steals her wealthy classmate's identity and moves halfway around the world to America in order to build a new life and change her circumstances. And she is up for a very prestigious entrepreneurial award, and there's a very ambitious journalist who is about to expose her. So she has to return to Singapore and cover up her tracks.
Oh, wow. Okay. First, let me grab my book. All right. So I'm Weina Dai Randel. The book I'm talking about today is called The Master Jeweler. And I just realized that Mansi and I actually both wrote the stories, and we are the protagonists are both orphans. Isn't that weird? I did not realize that before. But so this book, The Master Jeweler, is about an orphan who was 16 years old, and Anyu discovered a precious Fabergé egg, the winter egg in the snow, and that encounter changed her life, and she returned this priceless Fabergé egg to the rightful owner, who's a master jeweler, a master jeweler from Russia who actually fled from Russia to China. So when she gave this priceless egg back to the owner was very grateful, and he said, if you ever need any help from me, come to Shanghai and I will help you. And then it was during the wartime in China. So Anyu lost her mother, and she had no place to go. And then she remembered this promise and went to Shanghai. So found this master jeweler, and then the master jeweler took her under wing, and she was inspired to become the master jeweler. She was inspired to craft many unique jewelries for his store and brought his store to a very famous level in Shanghai at that time, because in Shanghai at that time it was also war torn and with a lot of Japanese invasion going on. And the master jeweler, Isaac Mandelberg, he was a Jewish person, and he was stateless. So for him to own a jewelry store in Shanghai with many precious jewelry and diamonds and emeralds, it was a very dangerous thing. So it's an unlikely story between two unlikely people, a Chinese orphan and a stateless Jew. The story will take you to those dark alleys where many gangsters, Chinese gangsters, will harass rich people, and many obsessed art collectors, obsessed jewelry collectors try to find the ways to rob other people. It's an exciting story, and in the end, it will take you to the book will take you from Hong Kong, from Harbin to Shanghai to Hong Kong. So it's an epic journey of a woman from when she's 15 to 46.
And it's a very, very engaging book.
Well, but today though I wanted to talk about Mansi's book Saving Face. It's a fascinating book. I started to read and I just could not put it down. I was fascinated with this idea of a character who's basically an imposter, right? And she took her classmate's identity and used her name and went to graduate school and got a degree and found a very successful cosmetic company. And the thing is, the company got so successful, she was in trouble because she got nominated for a very important award. And then there's a huge deal going on. And then somebody finds out she's a fraud, and everything just unravels. It's a fascinating story. So I thought the idea of an imposter, a fraud, is very, very unique. It's something that not many books discuss. So Mansi, why don't you tell us, how did you get this idea and how do you nail this character?
This book was very different from my other ones in terms of coming up with the idea. So it's based on so unlike Weina, I don't write historical fiction, or at least not yet. But this is based on a real place in Singapore that has a very, very real history. And so it's in the center of Singapore, right next to the Raffles Hotel. For 150 years, there was a convent, an orphanage, and girls' school that was there right in the heart of Singapore. And so on one of my trips to Singapore, I stumbled upon the Gate of Hope, which is referenced in the book and is a very, very real place. And so I hadn't heard anything about it before. And what's fascinating is this very iconic location today in Singapore is a very trendy area with restaurants and bars. This place that used to be a convent, an orphanage, and has such a huge history in Singapore. And so I read the plaque that's this historical marker at this place at the Gate of Hope that talked about how thousands and thousands of baby girls had been abandoned there because Singapore is predominantly Chinese ancestry, but also has a very large Indian population. Mm-hmm. And so given the cultures, there was a preference for boys for a long time. And so girls were abandoned because they were born in the year of the dragon and considered unlucky, or different things. But so the sisters at CHIJ, the Convent of the Holy Infant Jesus, had raised a lot of these orphans over the years. And so while I was standing there learning about this, I just immediately had that sort of author creative spark that I'd heard about, but never, most of my stories are kind of drawn out. But I thought to myself, it would be so interesting if someone had written about an orphan who was abandoned at the Gate of Hope and went on to become something big. And so then I was very jet lagged and I was up all night. looking because I was sure someone had written a story about this and could find almost nothing about the Gate of Hope. And so I realized that I really just wanted to write a story that paid homage to that history, even though it's a contemporary story.
I find it fascinating because the character is pretending to be somebody who she isn't,
Yeah.
and I as I was reading though I had some mixed feelings. I was like, how do you feel about the person who's imposter another, pretending to be another person? And then as I was reading though, you pointed out one thing. She basically abandoned her original self, and the only thing she kept was her hobby of embroidery. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that is so poignant, right? You
Yeah.
are trying so hard to be somebody else, and you have to let go many of your favorite things. And this is the vulnerability of the character really made me feel for her. You are obviously very good at crafting characters like that.
Yeah, I do prefer to write kind of morally gray character. Like, she steals someone's identity. That is generally considered a bad act. But as you're reading, you start to understand why she's doing this and what society tells us and women in particular, and women from a certain class as to what they should expect from life and what's the highest they can get to. And so she starts to challenge those things for herself. But yes, the embroidery piece is actually, this is one of those historical elements that I wanted to keep with her because for the sisters at CHIJ and the orphans, the embroidery was a big part of their schooling. And so there was a final exam that included embroidery. And so I myself don't do any sewing or needlework or embroidery. So I had to research the different stitches and things like that just to make it authentic. But when I was there interviewing and researching for this book, that was something that kept coming up. And I had the great fortune of meeting a woman who had gone to CHIJ. She's now in her 80s, and
Wow.
she still had in her living room framed her embroidery final exam from when she was in school. It was like such an important factor for them, and I just knew that had to be part of the book.
Oh wow, that's fascinating to
Yeah,
look at something that's like antique now, right? And
yeah,
she's 80 and she has an exam of
yeah,
embroidery.
yeah,
Wow, that's fascinating.
yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to say, like, it looks like both our characters have something that's very similar, and they are both very strong. And for An Yu in The Master Jeweler, when she started out, she was basically uh, had nothing. She had nothing. She grew up with her mother, and she's this illegitimate daughter of a warlord who nobody cared, and she was all by herself. And then from the moment when she saw this Fabergé egg, the winter egg, her entire world changed, and she's like, who could make something so beautiful like that? And I wanted to be just like that. And this just started out as an idea and then just propels her to, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do this, and it's just like unstoppable. In your book, in Saving Face, she was the same Monica, right?
Yeah.
Monica. She was a cleaning lady.
Yes.
And
Yeah, yeah, that's where she started. Yeah.
yeah.
No, yeah, I agree with you fully. I think both of Anu, when I was reading her, because yours is historical fiction, but obviously has themes that carry forward to today. But yeah, I think both of those characters, that sort of orphan background, they're both very resilient.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of fortitude, and they're both just trying to get ahead in life. They're both trying to
Yeah.
improve their station in life, for lack of a better phrase. And I think that's something that's very compelling. And so, even if you can't behave perfectly, because frankly, if a character behaved perfectly, that would also not be a very
Mhm.
interesting book for
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
either. So you have to have some questionable decisions, some mistakes, something along the way
Yeah.
in order to have a story at all. But yeah, when I was reading your book, I couldn't help but see so many of the similarities that we have, because your book touches on class and things like that, the same as mine does. And we're talking, the time periods are very far apart. The same
Mhm.
discussions are essentially being had, which I don't know what that says about our larger society, but here we are.
Yeah, yeah. I think with my character An Yu, one of the major thing is her character flaws.
Yeah,
She's very stubborn.
yeah,
She's like, this is my way and my way alone, and she
yeah,
wouldn't listen to anybody's suggestions.
yeah,
And as a result, she made many mistakes, many missteps, and
yeah,
that really helped her grow to become a mature woman and help her find friendship and love and a
yeah,
family.
yeah,
That's in a way that's like very poignant.
yeah,
And then in her life, in Anyu's life, though, her biggest obstacle at first was herself because of all
yeah,
the mistakes she was prone to make, and then war came up. So it's the whole huge thing. Like in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, Japan invaded China from northern China, Manchuria, then all the way down to Beijing, Shanghai, and eventually Hong Kong. It's like
yeah.
decades, and that's like thread through in her story as well. In your book, in Saving Face, what kind of obstacles can you like talk a little bit, give us a little bit ideas?
Yeah, so you'd mentioned earlier as well. So I won't give anything away for anyone who
Mhm.
hasn't
Just a
read the
little bit so we can
But
have
yeah, but so the book essentially starts where she is up for a very prestigious entrepreneurial award, which historically has never been won by anyone who looks like her. It's been won by white men
yes, yes.
up until she is now nominated for it. So it's a big deal for her personally, but it's also a big deal on a societal level that her Ayurvedic skincare company is at a point where it's being recognized on this grand stage. And so she is conflicted because she has done everything possible in growing her business to make sure her face is never in public view. She has no social media accounts. She's never part of the advertising. She only does written interviews because she knows that she has a big secret, that she's not who she says she is.
Mhm.
But the name that she picked is actually, it's a very common Indian diaspora name. It's Ami Shah. And so there's a lot of them out there. So it's a little bit easy for her to hide, given that that's the name that she ended up taking. But she's worried about any media attention. And at the same time, this business she's built, as we see with a lot of companies, a lot of businesses can look very successful, but also be very cash poor. And so that's what's happened to her. So there's a big deal that's at stake for her, a merger of her company with another one. And so she's torn about that because this is her baby. This is the
Mhm.
thing she built. This is the thing she sacrificed for her entire life to have. And now she has to give that up potentially, because the problem with the new business partner is
Yeah,
that
they want the business, but not her. I was like,
exactly.
what?
Exactly. Yeah, they want the assets, but they don't want her leading it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, from my former life before I was a lawyer, I went through many mergers and acquisitions of the companies that I was at. So, I've had a front row seat to some of that, how those inner workings happen for whoever the founder or the CEO is. And so, yeah, so she's got a lot of things. And then on top of that, she's got the journalist now who
Yeah.
is a Sikh Indian woman who is trying to revive her career because she had something happen earlier in her career where she's fallen off. So she's very ambitious and she wants to make a name for herself. And she's thinking, oh, this is the perfect way. I'm going to write a feature about the first ever Indian candidate for the Global Changemakers Award. So there's a lot of factors at play that all start in the first couple chapters. And so there's a lot that Monica has to work through.
Yeah, well, that sounds fascinating. I just kept reading and reading, and I want to know what's going on, what's next. And it's like, wow, she's nominated for this prestigious award, but she doesn't want it. And everybody's response was like, "You sure? Is
Yeah.
you don't want this?" So it was like, wow, it was a very fun to read.
Thank you.
Yeah. Another thing is, I thought your story was also very relevant when it comes to talking about immigrants. And you have a very popular line? Everybody on social media was like highlighting that. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, I might misquote it. I do know which one you're talking about. But yes, but so at the heart of the story,
Mhm.
Monica is an immigrant. She is not a
Yes.
citizen. She is living in America. She is an immigrant. Her residency in America is tied to her work. And so, as you know, we write books, well in advance of publication. And
Mhm, mhm.
so, unfortunately, this is a very relevant topic right
Yeah, I
now.
know. Like
But yeah,
yeah.
but there is, so there is some discussion about what it's like to be an immigrant in America, because she grew up in Singapore. And one of the big differences that I personally found fascinating, and part of why I wanted to write this, is that Singapore does not have the same sort of racial hierarchy
Mhm,
that America does. In Singapore, um, everything is very racially integrated between the Indian, Malay, and Chinese cultures that dominate most of that country. There's quotas for housing, there's quotas for jobs. They're very good about that. But in Singapore, there is a hierarchy that's built on class, because it seems like humans have to find a way to categorize each other some
yeah,
way,
yeah.
no matter what we're doing. And so then as she comes to America, so because she grew up in Singapore, she thinks money and wealth will alleviate a lot of her problems. But then she comes to America, where she is living a life that is, along the lines of what she thought she needed. She has the nice house, she has the fancy job, she, can go to the nice restaurants. But now America has more of a racial hierarchy.
Yeah.
So she has to fight against that a little bit as well. And so the line that you referenced, and I'm probably going to misquote myself, is that I should have marked it. Is that she had the privilege of being in America for as long as America could benefit off of her, but not of being American. And
Yeah. So
that line has been plucked out of this book because of everything that's kind of going on in our country right now. And it just feels very relevant.
yeah, yeah. I thought it's kind of poignant when you look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So yeah, it's very relevant. So
Yeah.
have you been to Singapore before, or did you live there for a period?
Um, so I have never lived there, but I have been there a few times. For me as an author, all of my books take place in a different country, at least thus far. So there's a big travel component with any of my novels that you read, but I only choose a place that I feel like I can write about with authenticity. And so I have relatives who live in Singapore, born and raised, and I have friends who are born and raised in Singapore who are of Chinese descent or Malay descent. And so I was relying heavily on those relationships as well as like my time researching there. But that's why I don't, since the book is contemporary, where she's already living in America, when she's going back to Singapore, she's going back to a modern day Singapore that I
Mhm.
feel like I can write about with authenticity, because she's also been away from it a long time.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would be hard for me to write about someone who's only lived there and is currently living there because I feel like there are better people to write that particular story, but I felt comfortable writing a story of someone who was raised there and obviously her childhood is off the page. But then goes back and is almost going back like a foreigner because she's been away a long time. And so she's seeing it anew. And so that felt like something I could write with authenticity.
I like the setting, Singapore, like
Yeah.
the background. She's from Singapore.
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't read a lot of books that's set in Singapore.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I want to know a little bit more about Singapore's culture.
Yeah, I think Singapore's culture is fascinating to me in so many ways. Like it's a young country. If anyone ever gets the chance to read Lee Kuan Yew's autobiography, it's great. Um, but yeah, it's just I think just in part because it is such a class-based system that is very interesting to me. The rise it has had since it became a nation in 50 years from where it started after the war, very, very impoverished, to where it is now. I feel like now everyone's impression of Singapore is, very futuristic, very modern,
Yeah, yeah.
very, very wealthy. And if there are any Crazy Rich Asians fans on this, the church at the end of that film where Araminta's wedding is and they flood it with water, that is the location where Monica is raised in Saving Face. That is the actual physical location. Warner Brothers actually filmed that on site.
Oh, wow.
Um,
I see.
so yeah, so it's a super fascinating place, but I also feel like what has been written about Singapore has been written more about the wealthy side of it. And so I
Yeah.
wanted something that showed the other side of Singapore, the side, not my family are not orphans, but most of the country is not living the way that's been portrayed in some of the media to date. So I thought it was just an interesting way to show another side of Singapore and to show that there's an Indian side to Singapore as well.
Yeah, I really like that. So thank you so much for choosing Singapore and to have your character grow up in Singapore in a convert, right? Oh, wow, how fun
Yeah.
is that? So
Yeah.
I um I just got your email as a newsletter, right? So in case people don't know you have newsletters, sign up for your newsletter now because you usually send us very helpful information. And the one I got yesterday was called The Geography of Love.
Of story.
Yeah, love
Yeah.
story or geography of love. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is such a great title. And I know you travel a lot.
Yeah.
Do you usually get inspirations when you travel?
I do, but it's funny because I end up like with Saving Face, I got inspiration not in the place I planned for, but I guess that's how creativity and inspiration works. So I was on a month-long trip in Asia, and I was only in Singapore because I flew Singapore Airlines and had a stopover. So I thought, oh, let me see friends and family. But I spent most of that trip in Sri Lanka because
Oh,
I
okay.
thought I was going to write a book that was based in Sri Lanka.
Hmm.
But then this story of Monica and the Gate of Hope just locked into me within the first 24 hours. And so I just got back from a month in Europe and the same things happened where, I went, it was post book launch. I just went on holiday and was, not planning to do anything writing related. And then, and if I did, I had a feeling I visited Austria for the first time, and I was really
Nice.
curious about Austrian history, especially because it was a new place for me. But then I was in Zurich where I've been before. And I got a book idea on accident, completely unintentionally that has sort of needled its way into me the same way Saving Face did. So I like to sit and think on these for a bit. So I'll let it marinate for a while I work on a different book and then come back to it. But this one I'm excited about. The idea I just got like a week ago. Like I'm excited about. I'm excited to research it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So how long did it take for you to write this Saving Face, this novel?
This one, so this one is kind of an interesting story because everything with this happened fast. which is not normally how things work for me. The idea came quickly, and then the drafting of it came so fast. And this is my fourth book. And so I really kind of felt, in some ways, I feel like I got a little cocky where I thought, oh, I know how to write a book now. It's, I figured it out. I'm 4 books in, I figured it out. So it only took me 2 months
Oh,
to write.
wow.
Yeah, which is not normally how it is for me, but it took me 2 months. The idea, again, like I said before, I'd been sitting on this idea for a while in my mind, and Monica's character was sort of coming to me. And so I wrote it really fast. I turned it in to my editors and thought, wow, this is the cleanest draft I've ever had. Even though I wrote it really fast, I feel so ready. Yeah, this is the biggest rewrite I've ever had to do.
Oh, wow.
So I spent way more time in revision on this one than I ever did on any of my other books, but they were longer to write. So I don't know. I feel like all I've learned in the process is that every book is different, and
Yes.
you just never know what's going to happen, slow or fast. It just, you'll see what happens.
Yeah, I know.
How long does it
And
take you? Because you have so much research to do.
yeah, research is a big part. Usually it takes me
Yeah.
like 5 months and 6 months to do a research.
Okay.
Like the master jeweler, I got like 22 books about metalsmithing and
Wow.
goldsmithing, and then all gemstones, all like that, and how to distinguish the gemstones, how to
Yeah.
tell, look at the ruby, what's the best lighting for ruby, and what is the best lighting for emeralds, and how do you detect that, the authenticity, and a lot of tips. It's fascinating by the way, and I usually, for me, usually I read the whole thing, like metalsmithing, for instance. I knew nothing about this, and I
Right.
couldn't even tell the difference between a wrench and a screwdriver, honestly. But the whole process is to read it and then put it down and walk away, and then 1 month later just pick them up again and then reread it. Then a few months later just read it again. So in that way I can digest all these techniques and the crafts and all those the chemicals and gemstones and like that. It's a fun part, but the master jeweler storyline, like it's similar to your story too. It came to me very fast. I was searching for stories for a long time, like for 4 months, and then it just came to me. It's like, okay, yeah, it has to be like this. And this story is about a woman's journey to become the best renowned master jeweler in Shanghai. So it's like, okay, this has to be a hero's journey, and then how is it gonna start and like that. So, but I wrote pretty quickly. I think I finished the entire manuscript in about a year, 12 months.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
your research comes through. So,
Thank you.
and it comes through seamlessly. Like I feel like part of my challenge, and I wonder if you have this too, is when you research so much, like I learned so many fascinating things about the sisters at this convent.
Mhm.
Um, but this isn't a historical book about the sisters.
You might want to write a story about that. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, but it's like it's very hard to figure out because like you want to share that because I'm such a nerd at heart. Like you want to share that information because it's so interesting, but then you have to find a way to like weave it in, like the embroidery thing, which I did not intend to do that as a pun, but I guess I did. So but yeah, it's like trying to find a way to make it seamlessly flow because you don't want to take the reader out of the story.
Hmm.
But I feel like it's so hard to choose what to include and what to leave out. And it's just like cool knowledge that you know and will share with your other author friends because you have to share it with somebody.
Yeah, but I think the detail about Convert really adds another layer to your
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
It's not like another Crazy Rich Asian story, but
Yeah.
it's like an orphan, a real orphan that grew in this convert, and she brought the past with her, and
Yeah.
that became her identity,
Yeah.
basically. So
Yeah.
I thought that was like basically very important detail and a layer to her character.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, and it felt very, I mean, again, this was the first time I was really dealing with an actual history. That, I felt like I wanted to make sure anything I wrote that referenced that actual history had to be accurate.
Yeah.
And anything that wasn't, I explained in my author's note. So any creative license was explained away in the author's note.
And you did a good job, very good job with this entrepreneurship as well. And I was gonna ask you, Mansi, were you like an aspiring entrepreneur yourself, or I guess like with your legal background, you were an attorney for Warner Brothers for so many years. That helps bring.
Yeah. So, well, I feel like as authors, we're all entrepreneurs by default. We're all sort of one woman companies. But yeah, I did. So I worked in a corporate world for most of my life. I just left my lawyer job about 3 years ago and have been writing for the last 3 years. But yeah, so I've been in the corporate world, and I went to graduate school in London, and while I did not get an MBA, I spent a lot of time with MBA students. And so Monica goes to London to business school, where I did spend a lot of time, even though I was not a student there. And I have a ton of friends who were at LBS. But I feel like there's a part of me that's maybe always wanted that. I cannot get any more degrees. I have told myself that because I'm such a school nerd. I would collect more degrees if I could. But the MBA is the one that I kind of wish I had in my back pocket, because I think MBA students have the most fun of any graduate program anywhere.
Oh, okay.
So I guess this is my way to live that out a little bit.
Okay, well, thank you. And I see we have 3 more minutes. So I do have a question. It's a fun question. A few fun questions.
Okay.
Do you mind?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so Saving Face is your fourth novel. You published like a good Indian, right? Good Indian girl.
Yes.
Yeah. And what are the other two books?
The Direction of the Wind.
Direction of the Wind, yes.
The Taste of Ginger.
Yes, The Taste of Ginger, yes. And they are all very popular, sold many, many copies, and many readers just love your books. They just keep reading your books. So here's one question though. You have 4 books.
Yeah.
And if you have all your characters came to life, who would you want to hang out with?
Oh, that's a super interesting question. I feel like I would probably want to hang out with Monica.
Okay.
From Saving Face, because she's interesting. Like, she's very layered, but I would also, her friend, her business partner in the book, Divya.
Divya.
I would love to. Divya is a girl's girl. Like, I feel like Monica, you can't fully trust her, but Divya, you could bet your life on. And so I feel like the person I would have the most interesting conversation with would be Monica, but the person I would want to be my ride or die would be Divya.
Okay. Do you think Monica will make a good friend?
I think that, without giving anything away, I think that as she grows in the book, she is working on getting there. And I think that I think that she, changes her priorities in a way that leads to more connections. So I think, early book Monica, tough to have as a friend.
Yeah.
By the end of the book,
later it does change, yes.
Yeah, by the end of the book, I think she's solid.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. You told these stories beautifully. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm curious, same question for you between the characters in your books.
Oh, okay. So, I would say Anyu is the person I would like to hang out with because she can really make beautiful jewelry. And I also think she will be very tough to make friends at the very beginning because she's very straightforward and very stubborn, and tells you whatever is in her mind. So it might be like coming up like very strong at the very beginning, but once you become good friend with her and she's very loyal, very committed, it's like she would do anything for you.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of friend I want in my life.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. She would be a good ride or die as well.
Yeah. Hi, Mina.
Hi, I'm back. Oh my gosh, so fascinating. Now I want to be friends with those guys too. Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to get into some questions from our audience.
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome. Weina, really wonderful questions for Mansi. I was fascinated with everything you all said. I just want to remind people, if you have questions, to put them in the Q&A, which is a button at the bottom of your screen. I want to ask this question first, though. I'm Indian. Mansi, I know you're Indian. Weina, you're Chinese, I believe. For people of our cultures, I think writing isn't really a super accepted profession for life. So how did you guys start on your journey to become a writer, and how did your families either support or not support you? Because like Mansi, I know you said you were a lawyer. I mean, that's sort of like one of the three accepted, lawyers. I don't think I'm surprising anybody when I say that. It's not stereotypical. But our parents want us to have, a career that can support us financially. Yeah. So, Mansi, I'm going to start with you. How did you start, and how did you get to where you are culturally, with the cultural background that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so I feel fortunate. We all got a glimpse of my dad, because I take full responsibility. I must have sent him the wrong link. Yeah, I've been fortunate. My parents never put pressure on me or my brother in terms of what we wanted to do, but we did, going back to what Mina said, we picked accepted professions. He's a doctor, I was a lawyer.
That's perfect.
So they, but they didn't push us into either of those. But I think when you grow up as an immigrant, like I knew I wanted to be financially stable. My family certainly had challenges while I was growing up. And when you live through that, I knew that was something I didn't want to do. And so I was very pragmatic about it. I was very immigrant pragmatic about it. So I started writing my debut in 2009. I was working, I took a year off from practicing law. I budgeted, I gave myself the year. I said, I'm going to write this novel, and if it doesn't pan out, then I'm going back to work. And so, spoiler, it didn't pan out at that time. So then I was doing writing classes. I did change jobs in order to give me, so I was still financially stable, but I left a law firm and went in-house. That's when I started working in entertainment, so that I could have more sit hours, and then I could continue to write. So I was doing both things at the same time for, a solid more than a decade before I got my first book deal. And so at that point, I was, working full-time at a studio in Hollywood, and, had a very, very demanding job, but this was the passion, this was the dream. And so I think my parents were able to support easily, because they knew I was so financially conservative and pragmatic that my first book came out, it did well. My second book was coming out, and I knew it had already been picked for Amazon's First Reads program, so I knew it would also do well. And so I left right before that second book came out, and kind of said to myself, now's the time to bet on yourself if you're ever going to do it. And so I think at that point, I garnered enough credibility with my parents that they were very supportive, and they knew where I was financially. I think for Indian parents, that's kind of what it is. It's, are you going to be destitute? Are you going to be moving back in with us? What is the plan here? But no, I feel very fortunate. I've always been supported, but I think I always presented everything in a way that was easy to support, because I myself didn't want to be financially unstable.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. How about you, Weina?
So I've always wanted to be an author since I was like a little kid, since I started to read like when I was in third grade. I just knew what I was gonna do. I wanted to be a writer. I want to write novels, those long like this thick book novels. But obviously my parents didn't support it. My dad was like, "Why don't you be a teacher, you know? It's so much better. In China, once you become a teacher, it's a lifetime job. Your life is just guaranteed. And you will probably be able to find a good husband as well if you are a good teacher." But I found out though, I'm this kind of person. I was allergic to conformity. So I was totally allergic to being obedient kid. So I was like, no, not teacher. It's too boring. I'm gonna just teach like for my entire life. That's just too boring. So I chose to be a journalist instead in college. But then I graduated and I worked for 4 years, and I was like, reality is kind of boring too. It's not like dramatic like a novel. It's like this is not my thing either. So fortunately though, I married this wonderful husband and he supported me, and I said I wanted to write a novel, and this is the story I always had in my head. I wanted to write it. And he's like, go for it. So it took me 10 years to write the first novel, The Moon in the Palace, that was published by Source Books, in 10 years, finished it. And it was like, wow, this is huge. And then I talked to my dad, and my dad is like, well, you're married. I suppose I shouldn't say anything, but can you still be a teacher? He's like, really wanted it. I was like, oh no, I like this. I was like, I have the contract. I can keep writing. And then he's like, how much money can you make as an author? I was like, it doesn't matter. I don't make any money. My husband does, so he supports me. So he's like, okay. Then he's my dad was like, all right. So now 4 books later, 5 books later, and then he's like, okay, I guess it's okay to be an author, but just don't work too hard. It's hard to use your brain all the time. So it's
Yeah.
like now he accepts it, and I can't do anything else. Basically, I'm not like Mansi, like so good at the law or this. Like I can't do anything else. The only thing I can do is just write.
Well, the community is grateful that that is what you do. Your stories are fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Agreed. I think both of your books are, but I also think like, you could have been swimming upstream a little bit with being writers as well, because, not only are you from, India and China, but you're also women of color. Publishing has not been super um, uh, supportive of that. So how did you get your first book published? Did you get an agent? Did you have connections? How did that work for you? Weina, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Okay, so I was looking for an agent like for 4 years, and I sent out queries, like 82 query letters, and they were all rejected. And in the course of 4 years, it was so hard. Every time I got a rejection letter, I just got so bad-tempered, yell at my kids and my husband, and it's like I don't even want to look at that anymore. But I was very lucky. Like at a conference, I met an editor and I talked to her, and she's from Source Books, and she's like, "This sounds a very good, interesting story. Why don't you send it to me?" And I didn't do anything for a month. Basically, I was like, I don't believe it. I don't believe an editor will actually accept your manuscript without an agent. So I talked to my very good friends of mine, and she's like, send it to her. Goodness gracious, what can come out of it? It's like the worst thing she can say is no. I was like, okay. I followed up, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm bringing this to the board, and we are making an offer. I was like, oh wow, they are really mean it, but now I need an agent. So I went back to one of the agents who rejected me and I signed this letter of representation, and then that's how my first book came out.
That is fascinating. Weina, I've never heard of another story like that. Like that shows how good the book was.
Absolutely. I mean, they know good things. I do have a question about that in a second, but Mansi, I wanted to hear your publishing journey too.
Yeah, mine's different. Um, so, so like I said, I took a year off of work in 2009, and wrote what ended up being The Taste of Ginger. So I am like a rules follower. I went the agent route. But so I got my first agent, pretty easily in 2000, in 2011. But then we never got to the point where she felt like she could submit it, and then we parted ways. And then I was dealing with various like lawyer job things, and in 2017, so I kept writing, taking classes for all those years. And then I tried to make myself not want to be a writer during those years, and it turned out that was unsuccessful. So then I got a new agent in 2017, and we queried, or like she submitted The Taste of Ginger everywhere, and it got rejected. I got a bunch what I call like but don't love. That was kind of the feedback I was getting, and so it's good in a way where it's like okay, maybe this is the wrong story. If I write something else, people will connect with it. But then it was very it's kind of an awkward thing. And if anyone wants to know more about this, I've done it's in a bunch of interviews that you can find on my website. But I ended up getting my first deal during the pandemic, from an editor who had rejected the book in March of 2019, and then came and made an offer in August of 2020. And it was a very bittersweet moment for me because it was clear what was going on in the world at that time. That was post George Floyd, during the pandemic, and publishing was, being taken to task for the stories it was telling. And so I had not moved a comma in that book that was rejected in March 2019. And then I was being offered a 2-book deal in August of 2020. And I had a very long conversation with my agent at the time because, you kind of, it's hard to separate that a man died on camera in between those two things. And that was kind of what was going on in the world. But however it came about, publishing was finally ready to start telling authentic stories because I knew I was never going to whitewash my stories. They were either going to get published as they were, that would read very authentic to someone who is of Indian or South Asian descent, or I was going to keep being a lawyer. those were the two paths. And so yeah, so I that's how I got my first deal, and ended up publishing my first 2 books. And it was a very difficult decision for me, but it was a foot in the door. I felt like I had stories I wanted to tell, and even if it's not the most celebratory way of getting into publishing, it did get me there. I'm proud of the stories that I tell, and I'm grateful to have found readers for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm going to get to Cassandra's question first, and then if we have time, we'll get back to mine. Mansi, I know you discussed a little bit about how much research went into your books, but I'd like to know from both of you, if you were able to access firsthand accounts from people that other people wouldn't have access to because you're writers in order to tell your stories. Mansi, if you want to start with that.
Sure. Yeah. So I went on I returned to Singapore on a pure research trip after I had written a couple drafts of the book, just because Singapore is far. And so I needed to make sure that time was being utilized in the best way possible. And so, yeah, so that's when I connected with a local tour guide. Her mother is the one who was at the school, who I was able to meet with. I interviewed the current principal of the school, and I really went into the archives in a way. I'm actually really proud of this, where like leave it to an author to dig deep into any library. Like, we will find the depths of a library. And so I found voice recordings from the 70s and 80s of the sisters talking about the orphans and like a variety of things. And it was great because the convent and everything has moved. It's no longer in the same location. But the school did not know about those cassettes in the archives. And so after when I met with them and interviewed them, I told them about them. And so now they have access to this resource, that, like a huge part of their history that they didn't realize had been there. So feel very proud of that on the research front.
Wow.
Yeah,
Amazing.
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that, like not like the Vatican Library or something. It's hard to like lose stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
about you, Weina? Did you have access to things that we wouldn't normally have?
I think the material that I have access to is available for everybody. I actually never had this luxury of traveling to a place where I wrote, like I wrote Night Angels that's set in Vienna. I've never been there, so that was was written during COVID, so I couldn't travel anyway. So everything was just like on Google Map or through books. I also did not have this luxury of talking to the people who in my book, because they are mostly dead. It's like in 1920s, 30s, they don't exist anymore. What I do though, I usually read a lot of memoir. So first-hand information from those people who lived through that time, and then I can place myself in there, place the characters in there. I also study a lot of books that's written by the authors at that time who wrote about that period at the same time. So this is basically my main thing. I just do research. I read that. We try to use the primary source if I can, and then I will go to JSTOR and go to the library and get into library loan books and like that. My library is being very supportive. Oh my goodness, they will get books for me that's like last checkout in 1960s. It's like, wow. Yeah, they've been very sweet, and I usually keep them for a long time, and they would let me do it.
Well, you're writing a book and it hasn't been taken out since 1960, so it's not like somebody's waiting for it. But I'm curious as one last question, because people always think that like third world countries don't take good care of their history or they don't know. And did you find, except for the cassette thing, that where you were writing about actually kept good histories of their, the different things that you were interested in for your books? Weina?
Unfortunately, China is a different story. A lot of information were kept by the government for some reasons, and also a lot of information, books, and personal accounts, they were destroyed for some reasons. So it was very difficult actually finding something that's written in Chinese and from a first-person perspective. But they do have a lot of classical literature and everything. So it's kind of sad when we talk about that.
That's interesting because being Indian, I know that like they don't keep like birth records because so many people were born at home and things like that. So that's a little bit difficult. Mansi, how about you?
Yeah, I think Singapore is definitely different. I think they, in general, keep very good records, and it's a very young country. So I mean, obviously, it's had a different history from before it became its own independent nation. But that was like finding those library records of those tapes that, then they were digitized, which is how I was able to listen to them. Finding something like that, I think they really have done a good job maintaining history. And I think specifically of this place because it was so iconic for so many years. And it was the one place, regardless of who was in charge of the land, for lack of a better word, at that point, whoever was, whatever war was going on, this particular city block in Singapore was always okay. It was not bombed. Like there was some deference paid to this particular place. So they did a really good job of maintaining the history of this place, which was great for me. So I went down the rabbit hole. I went pretty deep down the rabbit hole.
I love that. So we just have another minute. I want to ask what's next for you because I know, Weina, you just turned in a manuscript. Is that correct?
I know. Yeah, I just finished it and submitted on October 1st, and I'm still recovering. I was like, every time when I finish a book, I feel nothing in me. I'm empty. I'm all empty. I can't put two words together.
I'm impressed that you're here tonight.
Thank you.
So that just got in. So like, can you tell us anything about it? Title, anything?
Uh, um, I think the title is like the last thing we can do, right? Usually the publisher will tell you, "Hey, this title is great, but we have some ideas." So this is like the Master Jeweler. I was so sure. I was like, "Hey, Mina, this is a jeweler story, so it has to be the jeweler. That's it, nothing else." And then at the end, like my publisher said, like, "We gotta talk about the title." I was like, oh, okay. So finally we came up with the Master Jeweler and I was fine with it. But this title, I don't know if they're going to change it. Okay, I'm going to keep it secret for now.
Oh.
It's a love story set in China in near the Himalayas. It's like very far away from the city. We're going to the mountains.
Oh, and because you just handed it in, do you have any idea when it might come out?
Yeah, my editor already told me it's going to be published in August. August next year. I was like, whoa, seriously? That's very fast. I was like, yep.
See, like as a reader, I'm like, wow, that's really far away. And you're like, oh,
really?
fast.
I wanted more time. I wanted more time to revise so I can tweak this, tweak that. So I can't always get what I want.
Well, we'll be looking forward to August. And Mansi, how about you? I know that this just came out, so I don't know if you're in the process of another book.
Yeah, so this just came out, and then I was telling Weina I ran away to Europe. And Weina, I was in Vienna, which is possibly my new favorite city in Europe, so I can't wait till you're able to go. But no, so my thing is picking the idea. So I have three that I'm kicking around, but I'm at a totally different place from Weina. I'm starting. I actually have two books that have, 50 to 100 pages that I'd started before. And then I have the new idea that I got while I was in Europe. But yeah, mine is just, since I just got back, I'm at the tail end of jet lag. So I told myself until mid-October, I get to just, live. And then I need to choose one and buckle down and get going.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to hearing whatever that comes out to be. So, well, this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much. I think having two people of such great and interesting backgrounds just widens our entire perspective of the world. And I really appreciate you and your books and this talk. So thank you so much for doing it with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Mina, for inviting us. It really means so much for your support. Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you, Mina. This has been wonderful. Weina, you've been great. And a huge thank you to the Ashland Public Library and to all libraries. We are really just, I don't know about Weina, but I would not be a writer without having had libraries. We couldn't afford to buy books when I was a kid. Yeah. And I was at the library getting my maximum 10 books every single week. So I am definitely a product of libraries.
I am too, but I didn't become a writer, but I did become a librarian.
Yes.
You are an advocate for us. That's the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Weina. I appreciate that. Well, I hope you all have good writing times, good editing times, and for everybody here, I hope you have a wonderful night and good reading in your future. So happy reading, everyone.
Bye.